Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the exploration ship Horizon and stared at the stars ahead. The year was 2387, and humanity had finally cracked the secret of faster-than-light travel. Their ships were not pretty or elegant, but they worked, and that was all that mattered to Jake and his crew of 30 brave souls who had volunteered to explore the unknown regions of space beyond Earth's solar system. The Horizon had been traveling for 6 months when the sensors detected something impossible. A ship was approaching them, and it was not human. Jake felt his heart race as he watched the unknown vessel grow larger on the main screen. The alien ship was beautiful in a way that human technology could never match. It moved through space like a dancer and seemed to bend light around its hull. Lieutenant Lisa Carter rushed to her station and began scanning the approaching vessel. She was the best scientist on the ship, and Jake trusted her judgment completely. Her reading showed that the alien ship was 3 times larger than the Horizon and powered by technology that human science could barely detect, let alone understand. The communication panel lit up with an incoming message. Jake took a deep breath and accepted the transmission. The main screen filled with the image of a tall, blue-skinned being with 4 arms and large, dark eyes. The alien spoke in a language that sounded like music, but somehow Jake could understand every word thanks to what appeared to be an automatic translation system. "Greetings, primitive vessel," the alien said in a voice that carried no malice, but somehow managed to sound deeply condescending. "I am Commander Velthar of the Zephyrian patrol ship Swift Current. You have entered territory monitored by the Galactic Council of Unified Species. State your origin and purpose." Jake straightened his uniform and tried to project confidence he did not feel. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the human exploration vessel Horizon. We come from Earth in the Sol system, and we seek peaceful contact with other intelligent species." Commander Velthar's expression shifted slightly in what Jake would later learn was the Zephyrian equivalent of mild amusement. "Humans," Velthar said, as if tasting the word. "Yes, we have detected your crude antimatter drives in recent months. You are classified as a Category C emerging species in our databases." "Category C," Lisa whispered from her station. "What does that mean exactly?" Velthar apparently heard her question despite the distance. "Category C indicates a species that has achieved basic interstellar capability, but remains far too primitive for meaningful contact with the Council. Your technology is approximately 4,000 years behind current galactic standards." Jake felt a flush of anger but kept his voice level. "We may be new to space travel, but we are eager to learn and to contribute to galactic civilization. Perhaps we could arrange some form of cultural or technological exchange." The Zephyrian commander's forearms gestured in what seemed to be a dismissive wave. "I am afraid that is impossible, Captain Morrison. The Council has very strict protocols regarding contact with underdeveloped species. Premature exposure to advanced technology has historically led to cultural contamination and societal collapse among primitive races." "Primitive races," Jake repeated slowly. The word stung more than he cared to admit. "Please do not take offense," Velthar continued in that same patronizing tone. "Every species goes through this phase of development. The Zephyrians themselves were once considered primitive by the elder races of the Council. In perhaps a few centuries, when humanity has proven its capacity for peaceful development and technological advancement, you may be considered for observer status." Lisa leaned forward at her station. "What would it take for humanity to be considered ready for contact?" Velthar consulted what appeared to be a holographic display that materialized near his upper left hand. "According to Council protocols, a Category C species must demonstrate technological capabilities equivalent to at least 3 current Council member species before being eligible for evaluation. This typically includes mastery of quantum mechanics, applied engineering, successful terraforming of at least 1 planetary body, development of non-destructive faster-than-light communication, and proof of peaceful coexistence with at least 2 other spacefaring species. That seems like a very high bar," Jake said carefully. "The Council has learned through experience that species which cannot meet these basic requirements tend to become aggressive or self-destructive when exposed to advanced galactic civilization," Velthar explained. "It is for your own protection as much as ours." Jake felt his crew's frustration through the bridge's tense silence. They had traveled so far and overcome so many challenges, only to be told they were not advanced enough to matter. "Is there any assistance the Council might provide to help accelerating species reach these benchmarks?" I am afraid not, Velthar replied. Council doctrine strictly prohibits technological assistance to underdeveloped species. You must achieve advancement through your own efforts. This ensures that any progress is genuine and sustainable rather than dependent on external support. The conversation continued for another hour, but it became increasingly clear that the Zephyrians viewed humanity as little more than an interesting curiosity. They were polite but firm in their refusal to share any meaningful information about galactic civilization. When Jake requested coordinates for Council, worlds that might be willing to establish trade relationships, Velthar simply smiled, in what humans would later recognize as condescending amusement. As the swift current prepared to depart, Velthar delivered one final message. Captain Morrison, you and your crew are welcome to continue your explorations within your designated zone. However, I must inform you that humanity has been assigned a quarantine boundary encompassing your local star cluster. Any attempt to venture beyond these limits or to interfere with Council affairs will be met with appropriate action. Quarantine boundary, Lisa echoed. You mean we are trapped? Think of it as a protective measure, Velthar said. Many young species benefit from a period of isolated development. When humanity has matured sufficiently, the Council will reevaluate your status. The transmission ended and the swift current vanished into hyperspace, leaving the horizon alone among the stars. Jake stared at the empty space where the alien ship had been and felt something cold settle in his stomach. Humanity had finally reached the stars only to discover that the universe considered them children, playing with toys they did not understand. 6 months later, the official response from the Galactic Council arrived, at Earth through automated probe. The message was brief and bureaucratic in tone. Humanity was to remain within their assigned boundaries and await further evaluation. No timeline was provided for when such evaluation might occur. The galaxy had spoken and its message was clear. Humanity was not ready to join the cosmic community and would have to prove itself worthy of even basic recognition. Admiral Kate Sullivan read the Council's message 3 times before throwing the datapad across her office. The universe had just told humanity to sit in the corner and wait until the adults decided they were ready to participate. What the galaxy did not understand was that telling humans they could not do something was the fastest way to ensure they would find a way to do it anyway. Admiral Kate Sullivan had never been the type of person to accept no for an answer. When the Galactic Council told humanity to stay in their corner and wait patiently for permission to join galactic civilization, she saw it as a challenge rather than a setback. 3 weeks after receiving the Council's dismissive message, she called together the brightest minds in human space to discuss what she was calling Project Leapfrog. The meeting took place in a hidden facility carved into the asteroid Ceres, where Earth's new interstellar defense command had established its headquarters. Kate stood before a room filled with scientists, engineers, and military officers who represented humanity's best hope of breaking free from their cosmic quarantine. Among them was Dr. Ryan Torres, a quantum physicist who had been working on experimental propulsion systems since before first contact. Ladies and gentlemen, Kate began, the universe has made it clear that humanity is not welcome at the adult table. The Galactic Council considers us primitive children who need to prove ourselves worthy of basic recognition. I say we give them exactly what they asked for, but not in the way they expect. Dr. Torres raised his hand. Admiral, what exactly are you proposing? The Council made it clear that they will not provide any technological assistance, and our current understanding of their science is extremely limited. Kate smiled grimly. That is exactly why this might work, Ryan. The Council assumes that without their help we cannot possibly advance fast enough to matter. They are thinking like beings who have had millions of years to perfect their technology through slow, careful progress. But humans do not think that way. She activated a holographic display that showed the scan data collected during the Horizon's encounter with the Zephyrian ship. We may not understand how their technology works, but we have detailed sensor readings of it in operation. We know that they use some form of gravity manipulation for propulsion, and that their hulls seem to exist in multiple dimensions. Simultaneously, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Carter, who had transferred from the Horizon to join the project, studied the data carefully. These readings are incomplete, Admiral. We can see the effects of their technology but not the underlying principles. It would be like trying to build a computer by watching someone use a keyboard. Exactly, Kate replied, which is why we are not going to copy their technology. We are going to do what humans do best. We are going to find our own way. The next 18 months were a blur of frantic research and experimentation. The series facility expanded into a massive complex that tunneled deep into the asteroid's core. Scientists worked around the clock testing theories that would have been considered impossible just years earlier. The fact that humanity knew such technology was possible made all the difference. Dr. Torres made the first breakthrough when he successfully created a localized gravity field, using a modified fusion reactor and an array of quantum field generators. The field was unstable and lasted only 3 seconds, but it proved that humans could manipulate gravity without understanding exactly how the aliens did it. More importantly, it worked in a completely different way than the smooth, elegant gravity wells the council species seemed to prefer. Look at this, Ryan called to his team as they reviewed the test data. Our gravity field is not uniform like the alien readings suggest theirs are. Ours pulses and fluctuates in irregular patterns. By conventional physics, this should make it less efficient, but the energy output is actually higher. Dr. Sarah Kim, a neurobiologist who had joined the project to study how alien minds might differ from human ones, made an interesting observation. What if the irregularity is not a flaw but a feature? Human brains evolved to handle chaos and uncertainty. Maybe our technology reflects that same adaptability. The breakthrough that changed everything came when Sarah suggested connecting human neural patterns directly to the quantum computers, controlling the gravity generators. The idea was risky and potentially dangerous, but when volunteer test pilot Lieutenant Ben Foster agreed to undergo the neural interface procedure, the results exceeded everyone's expectations. Ben's mind somehow synchronized with the chaotic quantum fluctuations in ways that the most advanced computers could not predict or replicate. When he activated the gravity field while neurally linked, the distortion became incredibly precise despite its irregular nature. He could manipulate gravity like a musician playing an instrument, creating effects that defied conventional understanding of physics. Meanwhile, humanity's diplomatic efforts continued to fail spectacularly. Ambassador Helen Brooks led mission after mission to various council worlds, only to be turned away at border checkpoints or subjected to lectures about species maturity. The insectoid Corthans, who controlled vast mining operations in the galactic core, refused to even acknowledge human communication attempts. The crystalline Felnari considered humans too energetically chaotic for meaningful contact and suggested that humanity might be ready for basic interaction in perhaps 1,000 years after they had learned to control their emotional volatility. The reptilian draconians simply ignored human ships, entirely treating them as they might treat insects that had wandered into their territory. Each rejection only fueled Kate's determination to prove the galaxy wrong. She expanded Project Leapfrog to include weapons research after realizing that diplomacy alone would never earn humanity the respect they needed. If the Council would not accept humans as equals, perhaps they could be convinced to fear humans as enemies. The weapons research took an unexpected direction when engineer Marcus Bell discovered that human neural patterns could interface with quantum targeting systems in ways that produced seemingly impossible accuracy. Human intuition combined with quantum computing created targeting solutions that worked even when the physics should have made them impossible. Dr. Torres completed the first prototype gravity disruptor 18 months after the project began. The device was crude and unstable by galactic standards, but it could tear apart molecular bonds across a significant area of space. More importantly, it worked according to human principles rather than alien ones, making it completely unpredictable to anyone who might try to defend against it. The testing phase revealed something that surprised everyone involved. Human technology was not just different from Council technology, it was fundamentally incompatible with it. Where alien systems relied on elegant mathematical precision, human systems embraced controlled chaos. Where alien weapons followed predictable energy patterns, human weapons created random fluctuations that made defense nearly impossible. Kate realized that humanity's isolation had given them an unexpected advantage. Every other species in the galaxy had developed their technology in contact with the Council, learning to build systems that were compatible with existing galactic standards. Humans had been forced to develop in complete isolation, creating Solutions that no one else in the galaxy would expect or understand. The final test came when the prototype, Battleship UES Defiance, was completed in the hidden shipyards near Saturn. Captain Alex Turner, a veteran pilot, who had undergone the same neural interface procedure as Ben Foster, took command of humanity's first true warship. The Defiance looked nothing like the elegant council vessels with their smooth curves and graceful lines. Instead, it was angular and aggressive, with weapon systems that seemed to violate several laws of physics. When Kate received word that a draconian fleet was approaching human space, she knew the moment of truth had arrived. Humanity would finally have the chance to show the galaxy what they had learned during their forced isolation. The universe had ignored them long enough, and now it was time to announce their presence in a way that no one could dismiss. Kate stood in the command center on Ceres and watched as the Defiance prepared for its first combat mission. She had spent 3 years preparing for this moment, and now everything depended on whether humanity's chaotic approach to technology could stand against the galaxy's most advanced military forces. The universe was about to learn that ignoring humanity had been a mistake of cosmic proportions. The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted 3 days and achieved nothing except widespread panic among the galaxy's ruling species. Fleet Marshal Coltheran of the Zephyrian Navy stood before the assembled representatives and tried to explain how a single human patrol ship had destroyed one of the most powerful warships in Council space. The holographic recordings of the engagement played on repeat while the xenobiologists and military analysts struggled to understand what they were seeing. The gravitational distortions detected during the engagement are completely outside our understanding of physics, reported Chief Science Advisor Melterra, her crystalline form flickering with patterns of confusion and concern. The human vessel somehow created localized gravity storms that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Our best theoretical models suggest this should be impossible, Commander. Velthar, who had conducted humanity's first contact 3 years earlier, found himself in the uncomfortable position of defending his original assessment. At the time of initial contact, human technology was clearly primitive, he insisted. Their antimatter drives were crude, and their understanding of quantum mechanics was elementary. This level of advancement in such a short time period violates every known pattern of species development. The Corthanian representative clicked his mandibles in agitation. Perhaps we underestimated the threat these humans represent. The Draconians have always been aggressive, but their military technology is among the most advanced in the galaxy. If humans can destroy their dreadnoughts so easily, then no Council species is safe. Fleet Marshal Coltheran studied the tactical data one more time and came to the conclusion that had been nagging at him since the first reports arrived. I believe we are dealing with a completely new form of warfare. Human technology appears to embrace chaos and unpredictability in ways that make conventional defenses useless. Our shields and armor are designed to handle predictable energy patterns, but these gravity storms follow no recognizable patterns. The debate continued for hours as representatives from 47 species tried to understand how the galaxy's power balance had shifted so dramatically. Some called for immediate military action to eliminate the human threat before it could spread to other systems. Others argued for diplomatic solutions and attempted negotiation. A few suggested that the Council should simply withdraw from human space and hope that the primitives would be content with their local territory. The decision that emerged from the chaos was typical of Council politics. They would send an overwhelming force to demonstrate galactic unity, while simultaneously offering humanity a final chance to surrender peacefully. Fleet Marshal Coltheran would command a joint task force of 97 ships, representing 12 different species and carrying enough firepower to sterilize entire star. Systems Admiral Kate Sullivan received the Council's ultimatum exactly 72 hours after Captain Foster's engagement with the Scaled Vengeance. The message was delivered by automated probe and broadcast simultaneously to every human outpost in the solar system. The terms were simple and non-negotiable. Humanity would submit to immediate technological inspection, disarm all gravity-based weapons, and accept permanent Council oversight. Refusal would result in the complete sterilization of human space. Kate read the ultimatum 3 times before calling an emergency meeting of the Interstellar Defense Command staff. The hidden facility on Ceres was buzzing with activity as scientists and engineers worked frantically to analyze the data from Foster's engagement and prepare for what everyone knew was coming next. They are giving us 48 hours to surrender, Kate announced to the assembled officers. After that, they will consider us a clear and present danger to galactic security and act accordingly. Dr. Ryan Torres looked up from his analysis of the gravity storm data. Admiral, the Council fleet is massive, but their ships all use similar defensive technologies. If we can replicate what Captain Foster accomplished on a larger scale, we might have a chance. Captain Alex Turner, commander of the prototype battleship UES Defiance, had been studying the tactical projection since the ultimatum arrived. Admiral, I have been running combat simulations based on the Council fleet composition. Our advantages are limited but significant. They expect us to fight like every other species they have encountered, but our weapons and tactics are completely outside their experience. Kate nodded grimly. The question is whether one ship can handle 97 of theirs. Even with our technological advantages, those are overwhelming odds. Not necessarily, Dr. Torres replied. The Council ships are designed to work together using coordinated tactics and shared targeting data. But their coordination systems are built around predictable physics. If we can disrupt their ability to predict our movements, and weapons affects their numerical advantage, becomes less meaningful. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of final preparations and system checks. The Defiance was moved to a position near Saturn, where the hidden shipyards could provide support if needed. Captain Turner underwent additional neural interface calibration, while his crew practiced the chaotic combat maneuvers that human ships had developed. Unlike the elegant formation flying that Council species preferred, human tactics embraced controlled chaos and unpredictable movement patterns. The Council fleet arrived exactly on schedule, emerging from hyperspace in perfect formation with Fleet Marshal Coltheron's massive battle station Cosmic Justice at the center. The sight was intended to inspire awe and submission in any species that witnessed it. 97 ships representing the combined military might of galactic civilization arranged in attack formation and ready to demonstrate the price of defying Council authority. Admiral Sullivan watched the fleet deployment from the command center on Ceres and felt her stomach clench with fear and anticipation. Everything humanity had worked for during 3 years of isolation would be decided in the next few hours. Either their innovations would prove sufficient to defend human space, or their species would be remembered as a brief footnote in galactic history. Fleet Marshal Coltheron opened communication channels and delivered the final ultimatum in a voice that carried the authority of 12 civilizations. Human vessels, you have witnessed the assembled might of the Galactic Council. This fleet has the firepower to reduce your entire system to cosmic dust. You have one final opportunity to surrender peacefully and submit to Council authority. Captain Turner's response was broadcast from the Defiance on all frequencies so that every ship in both fleets could hear it clearly. Council fleet, this is Captain Alex Turner of the United Earth ship Defiance. You have entered human space without permission and threatened our people with destruction. You have 30 seconds to withdraw or face the consequences. The laughter that echoed across the communication channels came from dozens of different species, each expressing amusement in their own unique way. Fleet Marshal Coltheron's voice cut through the noise, filled with the confidence of someone who had never experienced military defeat. Captain Turner, you command a single vessel against 97 of the galaxy's finest warships. Perhaps you should reconsider your position. Turner activated the Defiance's weapon systems and felt his mind sync with the ship's quantum targeting matrix. Through the neural interface, he could perceive the entire Council fleet as a complex pattern of energy signatures and gravitational fields. Each ship was a note in a symphony of destruction that was about to bow. Learn what happened when chaos was introduced to order, Marshal. I appreciate the warning, but humanity has never been impressed by overwhelming odds, Turner replied. Besides, you are assuming this is going to be a fair fight. The battle began when Fleet Marshal Coltheron ordered a warning shot to demonstrate Council firepower. 6 ships fired simultaneously, sending streams of plasma and particle beams toward the Defiance. Turner responded by activating the gravity storm protocols and turning local space into a maze of twisted physics that made conventional tactics impossible. The Council weapons struck the gravity storms and simply vanished, as their energy was dispersed across multiple dimensions. At the same time, the Defiance began moving in patterns that defied conventional understanding of momentum and acceleration. The ship seemed to dance through space as Turner used gravity manipulation to change direction and velocity in ways that made targeting impossible. Fleet Marshal Col Theran watched in growing disbelief as his fleets coordinated. Attack patterns fell apart under the assault of chaotic physics. Ships that had trained together for decades found their targeting computers unable to track a vessel that seemed to exist in 17 dimensions simultaneously. Return fire from the Defiance struck with impossible precision despite the random nature of the gravity field surrounding it. The engagement lasted 43 minutes and ended with 43 council ships destroyed and the survivors fleeing in terror back to hyperspace. Captain Turner had not just defeated the Council fleet, he had redefined the nature of space warfare itself. Videos of the battle transmitted by automated Council beacons showed a single human warship dancing through enemy fire, while reality warped around it in patterns that violated every known law of physics. Captain Ben Foster was completing his morning patrol route in the human vessel Liberty when the alarm started screaming. The small patrol ship was one of only 12 vessels humanity had operating beyond the inner solar system, and Ben had been monitoring the outer perimeter of human space for 6 months without seeing anything more exciting than asteroids and cosmic debris. That changed when his sensors detected a massive energy signature approaching from the direction of the Vega system. The Liberty's main screen flickered to life, showing an enormous alien vessel emerging from what appeared to be a tear in space itself. Ben had seen recordings of Zephyrian ships, but this was something completely different. The newcomer was over 2 kilometers long with a hull that looked like it had been carved from black metal and polished to a mirror finish. Weapon ports lined its sides like teeth in the mouth of some cosmic predator. "This is the Draconian Imperial Dreadnought Scaled Vengeance," came a transmission in heavily accented but understandable English. "You will identify yourself immediately and prepare to receive boarding parties for inspection and registration." Ben felt his heart rate spike as he recognized the species name from the Council databases that Ambassador Brooks had managed to acquire during her diplomatic missions. The Draconians were one of the most aggressive members of the Galactic Council, with a long history of absorbing smaller civilizations through a combination of military pressure and economic domination. Their approach to dealing with primitive species was significantly less polite than the Zephyrians had been. "Draconian vessel. This is Captain Ben Foster of the human patrol ship Liberty," Ben replied, keeping his voice steady despite the fear crawling up his spine. "You are entering territory claimed by the United Earth government. Please state your intentions." The response came in the form of laughter that sounded like rocks grinding against metal. "Human," the alien voice said with obvious amusement. "We are aware of your species' recent emergence into space. The Council has classified you as Category C primitives with limited territorial claims. Your so-called territory is now claimed by the Draconian Empire under standard expansion protocols." Ben's training kicked in as he activated the Liberty's recording systems and established a quantum communication link with Earth. Whatever happened next, Admiral Sullivan and the Interstellar Defense Command needed to know about it. "Draconian vessel, I must inform you that humans do not recognize any claim to this system. You are ordered to withdraw immediately." The laughter that came through the communication system was louder this time. "Ordered," the Draconian captain repeated. "Small human, do you understand what you face? The Scaled Vengeance carries enough firepower to sterilize every planet in your primitive system. Your entire species exists only because we have not yet decided whether you are worth the effort of conquest." Ben stared at the massive alien warship and felt something cold settle in his stomach. The Draconians were not interested in negotiation or diplomacy. They had come to claim human space, and they clearly expected humanity to submit without resistance, just like every other primitive species they had encountered. "I am Scar General Thexvar, commander of the Scaled Vengeance," the alien continued. "By the authority of the Draconian Empire, and with the implicit approval of the Galactic Council, I hereby claim this system and all human-inhabited worlds for incorporation into Imperial territory. You have 1 standard hour to signal your government's unconditional surrender." Ben looked at his tactical display and confirmed what his eyes already told him. The Liberty was barely 300 meters long and carried only basic defensive systems. The Scaled Vengeance was a weapon designed to destroy entire fleets. By any reasonable measure, this should have been the end of the conversation, and probably the end of Ben's life. But Ben Foster had undergone the neural interface training that Dr. Torres and his team had developed. His mind was linked to quantum targeting systems that could process chaotic patterns in ways that conventional computers could not match. More importantly, the Liberty was equipped with one of the prototype gravity disruptors that Project Leapfrog had produced. "Draconian vessel, you have 30 seconds to leave this system," Ben said quietly. The silence that followed lasted exactly 10 seconds before Scar General Thexvar's voice returned, dripping with disbelief and rage. "Did you just threaten me, primitive? Do you have any comprehension of the forces you are challenging?" Ben activated the gravity disruptor and felt his mind sync with the chaotic quantum field that surrounded his ship. Through the neural interface, he could perceive space itself as a malleable substance that responded to his thoughts and intentions. The training simulations had prepared him for this moment, but the reality was far more intense than anything he had experienced before. 15 seconds, Ben said. Thexvar's response was predictable. "Weapons officer, target that insolent insect and vaporize it." The Scaled Vengeance's plasma cannons lit up the darkness of space as they charged for firing. Ben watched the energy readings climb on his sensors and knew that a single hit from those weapons would turn the Liberty into subatomic particles. He also knew that the Draconians were about to learn something that the galaxy had never suspected about human technology. Ben engaged the gravity storm protocol and felt reality bend around the Liberty. The space between the two ships suddenly became a chaotic maze of gravitational fields that twisted and pulsed in patterns that followed no known laws of physics. The Draconian plasma beams struck the gravity storm and simply vanished, as their energy was dispersed across 17 different dimensions. Simultaneously, Scar General Thexvar's voice cut through the communication channel, filled with confusion and the first hint of concern. "What sorcery is this? Our weapons are having no effect." Ben smiled grimly as he prepared to show the galaxy exactly what human innovation could accomplish when properly motivated. Through the neural interface, he could feel the massive Draconian dreadnought like a fly caught in a web of twisted space-time. The gravity disruptor was not just a weapon, it was a fundamental assault on the fabric of reality itself. "This is humanity saying hello," Ben said as he unleashed the full power of the gravity storm. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Scaled Vengeance simply came apart as its molecular bonds were overwhelmed by gravitational forces that shifted faster than its structural integrity systems could compensate. The massive warship that had seemed invincible moments earlier was reduced to a cloud of metallic debris in less than 30 seconds. Ben sat in stunned silence as he watched the remains of the Draconian dreadnought rain down on Jupiter's outer moons. His hands were shaking as he deactivated the gravity disruptor and felt his mind disconnect from the quantum field matrix. The entire engagement had lasted exactly 8 minutes from first contact to final destruction. The quantum communication link to Earth was flooded with messages as Admiral Sullivan and her staff tried to understand what they had just witnessed. The automated recording systems had captured everything, and the data was already being transmitted to every human outpost and research facility in the system. Admiral Sullivan's voice cut through the chaos of communication traffic. "Ben, what is your status? Please confirm the engagement results." Ben looked at his sensor readings one more time to make sure he was not hallucinating. "Admiral, the Draconian dreadnought has been completely destroyed. The Liberty is undamaged and all systems are functioning normally." The silence that followed lasted almost a full minute before Admiral Sullivan responded. "Ben, you need to return to Ceres immediately. We need to debrief this engagement and prepare for what comes next." As the Liberty began its journey back to the hidden base on Ceres, Ben realized that everything had just changed. Humanity had just announced its presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. A single human patrol ship had destroyed a Draconian Imperial dreadnought using technology that violated the fundamental assumptions about physics that every other species in the galaxy took for granted. The universe had spent 3 years ignoring humanity, while they developed weapons and tactics that no one else could predict or counter. The Galactic Council was about to discover that their dismissive treatment of humans had created something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The species they had considered too primitive to matter had just proven they could destroy the galaxy's most advanced warships with ease. Ben Foster had fired the shot that would echo across the galaxy and announce that humanity was no longer willing to be ignored. Ambassador Helen Brooks walked through the corridors of the Galactic Council chambers 6 months after the Battle of Sol and marveled at how much had changed. The same aliens who had once dismissed her requests for basic recognition now stepped aside respectfully as she passed. Zephyrian guards who had previously treated her like an unwelcome child now offered formal salutes. The crystalline Velnari who had considered humans too chaotic for meaningful contact now requested private meetings to discuss possible cooperation agreements. The emergency reorganization session had been called by the Council itself after 3 major member species threatened to withdraw unless humanity was granted immediate membership with full voting rights. The economic disruption caused by the battle had rippled across the galaxy as trade routes were rerouted and military budgets were hastily revised. Every species in Council space was scrambling to understand the implications of human technological superiority. Helen took her assigned seat in the main chamber and looked around at the assembled representatives of 47 civilizations. 6 months ago, she had begged these same beings for basic recognition and been told that humanity was too primitive to matter. Today, she was here to negotiate the terms under which humans would join their organization as equals. Fleet Marshal Coltharin approached her station with obvious discomfort. The proud Zephyrian military commander had been forced to explain to his government how a single human warship had destroyed nearly half of the galaxy's most advanced fleet. His career was effectively over, but he had requested this meeting to deliver a personal message. Ambassador Brooks, he said in a voice that carried none of the condescension she remembered from their previous encounters. I want to apologize for my species' treatment of humanity during first contact. We made assumptions based on incomplete information, and those assumptions nearly led to catastrophe. Helen studied the alien's face and saw genuine regret in his large dark eyes. Marshal, I appreciate the apology, but I think we can both agree that everything worked out for the best in the end. Perhaps, Coltharin replied. But I have reviewed the battle recordings dozens of times, and I still do not understand how your technology works. Our greatest scientists have studied the gravitational anomalies created by your ships, and they can only conclude that humans have somehow learned to manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe in ways that should be impossible. Helen smiled politely but offered no explanation. Dr. Torres and his research teams had become the most sought-after scientists in the galaxy, but they had shared very little information about how human gravity manipulation actually functioned. The mystery of human technology was proving to be almost as valuable as the technology itself. The formal session began with Council Prime Minister Zarathul, an ancient being whose species had founded the galactic government over 10,000 years ago. Her voice carried the weight of millennia as she addressed the assembly, but Helen noticed that her tone was far more respectful than it had been during previous human interactions. Representatives of the Galactic Council, we are gathered today to address the unprecedented situation created by the emergence of human military capabilities, the Prime Minister announced. The events of recent months have demonstrated that our previous assessment of human technological development was fundamentally flawed. The understatement drew nervous laughter from several species in the chamber. Helen maintained her diplomatic expression, but inwardly she was amused by their obvious discomfort. The galaxy's ruling elite had been forced to confront the fact that their assumptions about technological development were not universal laws. The Council hereby extends an offer of immediate membership to the human species, with Category A status, full technological exchange rights, and voting representation in all galactic affairs, the Prime Minister continued. We hope that humanity will accept this invitation and work with us to maintain peace and stability throughout the galaxy. Helen stood and activated her translation matrix so that her words would be clearly understood by every species present. Prime Minister Zarathul and esteemed representatives, I appreciate the Council's generous offer, but I must inform you that humanity has its own terms for joining this organization. The silence that followed was absolute. No primitive species in galactic history had ever been in a position to dictate terms to the Council. Helen could see the shock and confusion on alien faces throughout the chamber as they tried to process this unprecedented situation. First, Helen continued, human space will remain autonomous under human government. We will accept Council membership, but we will not accept Council oversight of internal human affairs. Several representatives began to object, But Prime Minister Zarathul raised a hand for silence. What other terms does humanity propose? Second, Helen said, technological exchange will be mutual and voluntary. Human innovations will be shared on a case-by-case basis in return for equivalent alien technologies. We will not be forced to reveal the secrets of our gravity manipulation systems. The Corthanian representative clicked his mandibles in agitation. This is unprecedented. Council membership has always included full technological transparency. Helen turned to face the insectoid alien directly. The Council's previous policies were based on the assumption that primitive species would be grateful for any assistance from their betters. Humanity is not a supplicant requesting charity. We are offering to join as equals. Admiral Kate Sullivan's voice reached Helen through her communication implant, providing real-time strategic analysis of the Council's reactions. The hidden base on Ceres was monitoring every aspect of the negotiations and feeding information to the human delegation. Dr. Torres and his team were particularly interested in how different species were responding to human demands. Third, Helen announced, the Council's policy of ignoring or dismissing young species will end immediately. Humanity will ensure that no other civilization faces the isolation and condescension that we endured. This demand caused an uproar as representatives from multiple species began speaking simultaneously. The idea that humans would oversee Council policies regarding primitive species was revolutionary and deeply troubling to civilizations that had spent millennia maintaining their technological advantages over younger races. Prime Minister Zarathul called for order and the chamber gradually quieted. Ambassador Brooks, these terms represent a fundamental restructuring of galactic governance. The Council will need time to consider the implications. Helen nodded graciously. Of course, Prime Minister, but I should mention that Admiral Turner's fleet is currently conducting training exercises in the outer system. I am sure the Council would like to avoid any misunderstandings about human intentions. The threat was subtle, but unmistakable. Captain Turner had been promoted to Admiral after the Battle of Sol, and given command of humanity's rapidly expanding fleet. The hidden shipyards near Saturn were now producing vessels that made the Defiance look primitive by comparison. Human naval power was growing exponentially as Dr. Torres and his team developed new applications for gravity manipulation technology. The negotiations continued for 3 days with various species proposing modifications and alternatives to the human terms. But everyone in the chamber understood the fundamental reality of the situation. Humanity had proven that they could destroy any Council fleet sent against them, and their technological advantages were only growing stronger. The final agreement was signed by all parties on the 4th day. Humanity would join the Galactic Council as a Category A member with full voting rights and autonomous control of human space. Technological exchange would be voluntary and mutual, with humans sharing innovations at their own discretion. Most importantly, the Council would establish new protocols for dealing with emerging species based on respect and assistance, rather than condescension and isolation. Admiral Turner was given command of the new Galactic Development Fleet tasked with monitoring the treatment of primitive species and ensuring that no civilization faced the dismissive attitude that had once been standard Council policy. The Defiance became the flagship of a force that would reshape galactic civilization through the simple principle that every species deserved respect, regardless of their current technological level. Dr. Torres established the Human Innovation Institute, with campuses on multiple Council worlds where alien scientists could study human approaches to chaotic physics and unpredictable engineering. The institute became the most prestigious research facility in the galaxy, but it carefully guarded the secrets of human neural interface technology and gravity storm generation. Helen Brooks became humanity's permanent representative to the Council and one of the most influential voices in galactic politics. Her speeches about the dangers of technological arrogance and the importance of treating young species with respect became required reading in diplomatic academies throughout Council space. The universe had learned a lesson that would echo through the ages. Never mistake youth for weakness, chaos for incompetence, or isolation for helplessness. The species that had been dismissed as primitive children had become the force that would guide galactic civilization into a new era of cooperation and mutual respect.